Here's a question that sounds almost too simple to ask. Why do you cook your food? Think about it. No wolf marinates its kill. No bear roasts the fish it pulls from a river. Not a single animal on this entire planet prepares its food with heat before eating it. Except us. Every human culture ever discovered, on every continent, in every climate, cooks its food. Not most cultures, not some. Every single one. And here's the part that should genuinely stop you. This isn't just a habit anymore. Your body has quietly rebuilt itself around this one behavior. Your jaw is weaker than a chimpanzee's. Your gut is shorter. Your teeth are smaller. Your entire body assumes the food arriving in your mouth has already been changed by fire. So somewhere, deep in our past, one ancestor made a decision that reshaped everything that came after them. But here's the strange part. We don't actually know how it started. An accident maybe, a piece of meat left too close to a wildfire, or something learned slowly over generations of trial and error. What we do know is this. The moment fire first touched food, it didn't just change what our ancestors ate. It changed what they became. Let's go back to a time before any of this ever happened. Imagine this. You're living almost 2 million years ago. You spend nearly half of every single day doing one thing: chewing. Raw roots, tough and stringy. Raw fruit, whenever you're lucky enough to find it. Bark, shoots, the occasional insect. None of it gives up its energy easily. Every bite has to be ground down, again and again, just to pull out enough calories to survive another day. You're not hunting, you're not resting, you're not talking to your family. You're just chewing. For hours. This is the life your ancestors lived. And here's something almost nobody realizes. Your body, the one you're living in right now, could not survive on that diet. Not because it wouldn't taste good, because your jaw is too weak and your gut is too short to pull enough energy from raw food alone. Something had to change between then and now. Something that gave far more energy from every single bite. Something that freed your ancestors from spending half their lives chewing. And that something was fire. Somewhere, an ancestor of yours held a piece of food over flame for the first time. Maybe on purpose. Maybe by pure accident, a root pulled from the ashes of a wildfire, tasting strangely better than anything raw ever had. Whoever it was, they didn't know it yet, but they had just changed the future of an entire species. To understand why this mattered so much, you need to understand what heat actually does to food. And the truth is, the transformation goes far deeper than most people ever stop to think about. Let's start with something simple, a raw root. Inside it, starch sits packed tightly into dense granules, almost sealed shut, nearly impossible for your digestive system to break into. Apply heat, and something remarkable happens. Those tight granules absorb water and slowly swell open. Suddenly, the exact same food, the exact same weight, gives your body dramatically more usable energy than it did just moments before. Nothing was added, nothing was taken away. Fire simply unlocked what was already there. Meat undergoes something just as dramatic. Raw meat is held together by tough structural fibers. Fibers your stomach acid can barely fight through, even after hours of digestion. Heat breaks those fibers apart, unraveling them into simpler strands your body can finally absorb with far less effort. And there's something else fire does, something just as important and far less talked about. It destroys many of the hidden toxins and dangerous organisms sitting inside raw food, defenses that plants and animals developed specifically to avoid being eaten. Suddenly, entire food sources that were once genuinely risky in their raw form became safe to eat. There's a fourth transformation worth mentioning too. When heat meets the natural sugars and proteins sitting on the surface of food, it triggers a reaction that creates entirely new flavors and compounds. Ones that never existed in the raw ingredient at all. It's the exact reason seared meat, roasted vegetables, and toasted food taste like something completely different from their raw versions. Some of those new compounds are even easier for your gut to absorb than the originals. Put all of this together, the unlocking of starch, the breakdown of tough fibers, the destruction of toxins, and the creation of new, easily absorbed compounds. And cooking stops looking like a matter of taste. It starts looking like something else entirely: outsourced digestion. Fire was doing a genuine share of the chemical work your own body used to have to do alone, one slow, exhausting bite at a time. Which meant your gut no longer needed to work as hard, or grow as large, or spend nearly as much energy just to keep you alive. Studies comparing identical meals, one raw and one cooked, consistently find meaningfully more usable energy in the cooked version, even though the ingredients were exactly the same. The very same food, two completely different amounts of energy your body could actually use. And that single difference, multiplied across millions of meals, across hundreds of thousands of years, was about to reshape the human body completely. Now, picture the time this actually freed up. Before cooking, your ancestors spent nearly half of every single waking hour chewing. Not resting, not socializing, not doing anything except grinding down tough, fibrous food, mouthful after mouthful, just to survive another day. Once cooked food became normal, that number collapsed dramatically, down to roughly the single hour you probably spend eating today: 4 or 5 extra hours, every single day. Now, think carefully about what your ancestors could actually do with time like that. Hunt together, with coordination and strategy, instead of struggling alone. Build better tools, spending hours refining them, instead of simply surviving to the next meal. Care for each other, maintain relationships within the group, teach the next generation, passing down knowledge that used to have no time to be shared at all. Sleep more safely too, together, around a fire that kept nighttime predators at a distance, letting an entire group rest in the open instead of scattering defensively into trees. The fire wasn't only cooking food, it was quietly creating something your species had never truly had before: time. And your body noticed. Around 1.8 million years ago, something changes sharply in the fossil record. A noticeably larger brain relative to body size, a taller frame with longer legs built for sustained movement, and most strikingly, a smaller jaw, smaller teeth, and a meaningfully shorter gut. That gut change might be one of the most dramatic shifts in our entire fossil record. In most primates, the digestive tract is enormous, built around processing huge volumes of tough, low-calorie plant material, a costly system demanding constant energy just to keep itself running. In your ancestors, that expensive system began to shrink. And there's really only one way a species could afford that. The food coming in had to require far less work for the same amount of energy. Because your brain, sitting quietly in your skull right now, uses close to 20% of your entire body's energy just to keep idling. Gram for gram, it costs far more to run than almost any other tissue in your body. Feeding a brain that expensive on a diet of raw, difficult-to-digest food alone may simply not have been possible. Less gut, more brain. Your ancestors' bodies were quietly reorganized, generation after generation, around one single new source of energy: cooked food. There's even experimental evidence supporting this pattern. In controlled studies, animals fed cooked meat consistently gained more weight over time than animals fed the exact same quantity of raw meat, with every other factor held constant. The only difference was whether fire had touched the food first. But there's something almost nobody thinks about when it comes to fire. A fire has to be built, it has to be tended, it has to be protected through the night, which meant people had to gather around it, cooperate, depend on each other in ways they hadn't needed to before. Someone tending the flame while another searched for food gave both of them a real advantage over anyone trying to survive entirely alone. And picture what happens once people gather around that fire in the evening. Bellies full, safe from predators, hours of free time available before sleep, time that used to be swallowed whole by endless chewing. Storytelling becomes possible. Passing down which plants were safe to eat and which ones weren't becomes possible. Teaching, laughter, shared memory, all of it fits into exactly the hours that fire had just created. The fire didn't just feed the brain. It created the very conditions that allowed that brain to start doing the things that made us recognizably human. So the next time you cook something as simple as a meal, take a moment to notice what you're actually doing. You're repeating the oldest, most distinctly human act your species has ever known. Older than farming, older than written language, quite possibly older than language itself. Every single meal you cook is a continuation of the exact moment that changed the future of your entire species. If you enjoyed uncovering this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because history hides in the most ordinary parts of life, even in your own kitchen. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.